Hello there everyone and welcome back. My climb to legendary ranking continues despite the rough series of matches I had last episode, and we're going to be facing off, or at least starting off, with some Blood Axe Orks. Although you may not realize it's Blood Axes because of the custom portrait that basically you are awarded after each of the season resets, so that is a generic portrait, but we are dealing with Blood Axes. They are going to be using the Commando upgrade, and I demonstrated recently how there's a relatively simple way, at least for Imperial Navy, to kind of reveal them, or at least pinpoint where they might be. And of course I'm going to take advantage of it here with my 4 cruisers, since what I'm going to be trying to do is just fire my torpedoes in one section, one half of the map, or at least in this case I'm going to be shooting like in the middle to the leftward side, have my fighters kind of explore over on a little bit on the right, directly in front of us, and then the frigates are going to scanner pulse and boost forward to kind of cover whatever is left. And ideally, the Orcs' own point defense are going to give away their positioning, or at least where some of their ships are. But of course, the more ships that are in that area, the faster those torpedoes get shot down, and the better indication I get for where the majority of their fleet is. So I like to think this is a very simple way that you can utilize that, or at least pinpoint where the Orcs are hiding. And even against Tyranids, this is incredibly effective. However, for all the other factions that don't have torpedoes, or even worse, only have 3 charges of torpedoes, because keep in mind, this is a lot of the reason why I'm utilizing this strategy to detect them. I actually have 6 charges of these torpedoes to kind of fire kind of at will, since the one thing I've been really bad on, I feel like, looking over my matches, is I don't like firing my torpedoes across the map very much, because I feel like they're more often than not really going to do a lot of damage, unless I feel like my opponent doesn't know what they're doing. And we're going to get this indication, or at least we're going to see the torpedoes hanging on out now. And as of course, since I didn't know we were dealing with Blood Axes right away, it did take me a little bit of time before I actually implemented this strategy. But like I said, I'm going to be watching where the torpedoes go. I'm going to launch my fighters over to, well, I already launched my fighters to kind of help get a little bit of vision, and ideally use them to reveal the ships if they're revealed by the torpedoes in any way at all. Basically doing my boomerang maneuver, as I dub it anyway, whereas I just recall the fighters after they reach their destination. And ideally, my cruisers are in a completely different part of the map that they can zigzag into the position I want to reveal the Orc fleet. Now, there's the sign there of the ships getting, like, at least some torpedoes getting shot down. It's not much of an indication, it was only like 1 torpedo each. But at least it can give me a little bit of reassurance that it's mostly just frigates that are there. Unless, of course, the cruisers are on the edge of where the torpedoes were. And conveniently, my fighters just revealed all their cruisers. And including a rock. There's an odd thing to note with this fleet. I don't quite recall if it's a mega rock, or if it's just a regular rock with the saps. But nonetheless, there is a rock in this fleet, so it's a little unusual, and I don't really consider it, or hell, I probably didn't even notice it up to this point. I'm just going to try and mark them and do what damage I can in the meantime. Ideally. Since Orcs with mega cannons are still terrifying, I may have torpedoes and can do a good amount of damage, especially if somehow my melta torpedoes can connect. But right now, I'm just trying to get what shots I can, ideally, kill off these brutes. In all seriousness though, if those cruisers are in range, I probably should be focusing on them. It's just hard to tell looking at the replay or the match of this whether I was actually in range of these shots, or at least to shoot at the cruisers. Since getting those critical hits, it's definitely going to be more impactful, especially if I somehow destroy one of their engines at this point. The cruiser is effectively out of the fight if I can get away with it. But either way, I'm focusing on killing the brutes. It's about to fall down in a moment, and now there's nothing else in my way besides maybe the one frigate that's grabbing the point right now. And ideally I want to try and kill it off too, or at least force it off the objective. I can't... Okay, I was gonna say, I was wondering if maybe I committed to firing a Nova Can or not. And no. I'm just gonna use the fighters to reveal it and maybe snipe it down.
Ship ready.
And I do have micro warp jump on this battleship, so I'm basing this strategy entirely on using it as bait to maybe have them chase after the battleship, and then just jumping away before they can get within boarding range ideally.
Underway.
That is the plan anyway, but I probably did it a little bit too preemptively in this case. But it works out well in retrospect because those boarding assault ships are about to come in reach. Maybe not the best implementation since I did immediately shoot them down at the same time. But if that battleship serves as a little bit better bait, that would have been nice for me. And it's still providing a little bit of support fire, but I'm trying to think. It's out of range of the plasma bomb, which can be really helpful here, because the additional damage is always warranted, but I'm trying to watch carefully what the Apocalypse is doing. I'm very mindful of this because I feel like maybe I could have gotten a little bit closer. It was a spur of the moment thing to just make sure my frigate was in position before I ran out of combustion gauge. And sadly, this wreckage is also kind of getting in the way a little bit, blocking a handful of my shots. So I'm trying to focus my damage. It's a little tricky with the Apocalypse again being an isolated spot right now, but if it can get critical hits, then that pays off over time. And now I'm just watching for... I think what I'm waiting for is waiting for him to boost, so I could fire a Nova Can on them, and I'm even boosting the Apocalypse right now to try and get in reach. Because this is the perfect time for a Nova Can, but I think I may have made a slight mistake here because I burned up a lot more of my combustion gauge than I would like. And sadly, somehow only a single melted torpedo, I think, connected there. We are getting hits in there, but most of the combustion gauge has been burnt. I think I overcommitted a little bit too much here, because the idea was to turn my prow, fire torpedoes, and then boost on past them, while they're not able to turn around ideally. That was the idea. Maximize my damage potential, boost past, and then that would give me, ideally, enough time to just get some distance and then ideally get turned around for another torpedo run. At least that way I minimize the amount of time that the Mega Cans have on me. And of course, it allows the melted torpedoes to do a world of damage if I can catch them without any repairs. But this is where the big problem with the Apocalypse comes in. It's not in range for any more plasma bombs, and as a result I have to turn inward, as opposed to having its lances help contribute in this fight. So it's a little bit of an unfortunate positioning on my part, I feel like, or maybe I could have waited a little bit longer to have it as a bit of bait. So long as its shields were up, it wasn't really at risk of getting boarded and canceling the micro warp jump. So as a result of that, I lost my mobility and probably my key strength in this battle. I could fight orcs in close range relatively well, but when I'm stuck on their prow with burnt combustion gauge, that's not going to bode well for me really quickly, as was made apparent. So I'm just going to concede here to an extent and try, well, hopefully to not let that happen again. Would be my best intentions and ideal here. Because that was rough. I made a critical mistake just in the combustion gauge. The Apocalypse not being able to get its abilities in kind of compounded on that. Alright, time to get our rematch with the Chaos Fleet. Was it the 4 Grand Cruisers and 10 frigates, I believe it was? And this is going to be a more interesting type of match, I want to believe at least. Although my opponent's going to get incessant on a very close range engagement, so I'm going to be trying to utilize my long range firepower to maybe get the lasting damage I need to potentially win, or at least be able to do some serious damage to them when the close range engagement begins. Although, again, it's like I hinted at last video, it's so rare I face off against this fleet in general, I don't know what skills and upgrades are best to utilize. But in this case, I'm going to go with the Stasis Bomb and the Supercharged Void Shield for the Apocalypse. Since my opponent does not have the convenience of the Disruption Overcharge, like the Adeptus Mechanicus, Eldari, and Space Marines have, so I can get a lot of longevity potentially with my Apocalypse if it can continue to take the Lance Fire. I just don't know in retrospect if it's like the best choice still. It sounds good in theory, but only if the Apocalypse is consistently taking the hits though, and just due to the nature of my Armageddons where they have the ramming spurs and torpedoes, they're just naturally, I feel like, going to want to get in close, and then the Apocalypse is no longer taking the flak for most of the fighting, is what I feel like. Although at the same time I don't know what abilities I can use to help get a little bit of that extra advantage, and it looks like it is 10 frigates.
We wait your command.
And another thing that you may have noted there is I considered maybe prioritizing the weapons, since if I'm so lucky, since the the Grand Cruisers have surprisingly short range lances compared to the rest of the Chaos fleet. It kind of goes against the philosophy and most of the playstyle of Chaos as a result. Never mind the fact that the Grand Cruisers are even just as fast as my cruisers currently, which is another facet that is unusual to Chaos most of the time. The only thing that goes that slow is basically the spoiler, and that's like the best carrier ship that Chaos has access to at the same time. So it kind of has that global range without having to be in close. Never mind its lances and weaponry are able to shoot at max distance. Or again, these Grand Cruisers do not get that convenience. So I'm going to be trying again to take advantage of that, although the objective layout does benefit Arcanists a little bit here. I'm not going to be able to safely take the middle point of the map, and they're going to have a gas cloud too, so any vision I do get before the third objective is grabbed, or at least the objective on the middle of the map is secured, they're also going to get concealed at the same time. So right off the bat, I feel like I am in a bit of an awkward predicament as far as trying to do my long-range damage without getting my frigates vulnerable to getting killed. And there is a bit of a lot of asteroid belts that are in my way too. And normally, this could be pretty good in some circumstances, since I do get like a defense bonus for being in the asteroid belts. But we're dealing with Chaos that's focused entirely on lances. They do not care about the defenses the asteroid belt gives me. So all I could probably hope for is maybe it'll do a little bit of damage to their fleet if I can force them to fly into it. Never mind that. You shouldn't overlook the morale damage that those asteroid belts can do too. It may not seem significant, but I think you can easily do 100 points of morale damage if a Grand Cruiser were just to fly through there casually and not boosted is what I'm referring to. Never mind what might happen to a frigate if they're flying through that. And that can definitely add up over time, especially in combination with the melted torpedoes, since sadly I do not have the Colexis Assassin to kind of help me in this regard, because I still wonder if it's the best choice or not, with how convenient it can be, unless I destroy their deck or damage it, on them just executing their crew, since I feel it's been a while since I played with Grand Cruisers, so I don't know exactly what their troop count is, but I don't feel like I can very easily kill off a Grand Cruiser just on boarding alone. Cripplet, some maybe, but by then I almost feel like the battle will be decided, unless I get the perfect critical hit I need. Now I'm about to reveal this one Grand Cruiser or frigate here that's going to tip off a scanner pulse, but I believe this frigate is going to survive. But again, they have a gas cloud. I am turning around to try and use the asteroid belt to some effect, and I'm hoping in some regard maybe this Novacan can do a little bit of that morale damage and maybe force them to boost through the gas cloud a little bit. I wasn't really expecting anything out of that Nova Cannon, to be honest, but again, it's 100 points of morale damage, so it can't be overlooked. Depending on how this battle plays out, that is. Now, they're boosted on me. Keep in mind, the Grand Cruisers go the same speed as me, and they do also have the less range than me, so I'm going to be trying to outrange them as I pick off some of these frigates. Keep in mind, the whole strategy of this fleet is to do boarding damage every time a frigate gets destroyed, and with their enhanced sensor range, you can see it now. I'm very easily going to lose 15-ish crew members or troops if I were to kill off all these frigates. And I don't have the Auger Disruptor to kind of help in that regard some, although denying only 1, maybe 2 boarding damage is probably not worth it for the Auger Disruptor, really. Now, the one ship that's currently concealed is the one that I had been focused on earlier. And I do have, again, the Supercharged Voice Shield at least being somewhat useful here. Now I'm just trying to maximize my damage potential. And swap these ships around so that way the Armageddon can at least, or the Apocalypse can regenerate, or at least recover some. And I don't know if you noticed it there, but my high energy turn really messed up on me in a moment. I'll recap there in I'll rewind after this battle, because that was unusual. We did an absurd amount of damage to at least this one Grand Cruiser. I just need to kill it quickly for this to really be impactful. And the melted torpedoes are sure to help in that regard. And the flagship's currently, I think, out of reach, but it is using a Scarab Swarm. Although that's changing now because it's outside the stasis bomb. So I'm going to try and focus it down for the morale damage. The fire assault should kill this one Grand Cruiser really easily. And it did cripple some of the lances, which, again, is a question if that's helping me or not. And sadly, the Apocalypse not quite able to get its Nova Cannon shot in, just due to the close proximity we're in. But we got good torpedo hit there. It's just a matter of somehow focusing on the flagship now to kill off their abilities and, again, do a good amount of morale damage to them at the same time. And sadly, I don't have any torpedoes to help in this regard, but it's got fire assaults. It is getting rammed, and I think I have a torpedo salvo about to come up on this thing right now. But thankfully, it's going to connect before a stasis bomb. And thankfully, it's just going to die right now. It's a bit of a brutal mess. I think maybe I don't believe I got any boarding at all. But with the flagship also gone, I am going to be down to the wire right now, I think. I do have 2 cruisers available. One is kind of doing nothing at the moment, so I need to fix that quickly. And I do have the Falchion coming in to try and contribute in this, some. Although I think I aimed that poorly, with that said. There was an audio cue for it hitting the second Grand Cruiser, but I don't think it was enough. And now, I want to kill this final Grand Cruiser. I think no, I just burnt my emergency repairs, I think, on this one cruiser. I can't remember if I did or not, to get the engines back up. And with the other cruiser being mutinied, I am down to 1 cruiser to their 3, maybe 4 frigates. Which sadly, they're going to have enough crew to kind of be able to keep those alive, just due to their mutiny. So in retrospect, I kind of wonder if I should board the frigates and maybe derelict them at some point, if we can get this to be as close as it has been before. I just sadly don't have the firepower to kill them, since this is the dictator, and not one of my overlords, or Armageddons rather, and I don't have torpedoes to try and get a guaranteed kill either. And sadly, the morale damage is just enough to force a mutiny on me. And it's entirely possible I may have lost due to the boarding damage, because again, that still was 4 boarding results, I believe. But the most important thing is I don't think I ever used summary execution or encouraging speech, which may have cost me a lot there, but most importantly, I think what I feel like cost me the most. Let's go back to that original torpedo assault I want to do. Alright, this is the moment I had in mind, and I caught it immediately, and I feel like it, despite how that played out, despite the things I could have done to maybe improve my gameplay, I feel like this may have cost me the match with at least how close it was. Pay close attention to the high energy turn icon on this one Armageddon as I try and turn to at least do my torpedo attack on this frontward cruiser, or at least Grand Cruiser. If for some reason sticks just on the cusp of trying to finish its high energy turn, never mind the fact it burnt more combustion gauge, I believe, as a result. And I never got the torpedo assault I wanted on the ship. Hell, I don't even think it did any damage as a result, because the point defense shot down before it hit any other cruisers. Maybe that's me being bitter. The only reason I really thought it was important to point out, because I don't know what the hell caused that glitch or that bug. And if I don't know how that triggered, I can't really fix it or let alone prevent it. Sure, I could have encouraging speech, but at the end of the day, it was a match that was down to the wire, and there's still fine-tuning I can do to maybe come out on top, perhaps. Alright, so this is an opportunity to get vengeance for that embarrassing defeat, mostly due to my own ignorance and misplays. We are face off against the Blood Axes yet again, and like I said, it should be relatively simple to detect, or at least isolate, and figure out where their fleet is, even if I don't spot them directly with my torpedoes. I can at least be very comfortable knowing which direction I can safely go to, if nothing else. In this case, I believe, if I'm remembering this match properly, New Parade was deployed just on the center gas clouds there, or at least vaguely around there. So I'm not going to detect them right away until after they grab the objective mostly. And then I'm going to be veering over to the left, trying to spot them so I can get what free damage I can, but I'm going to be utilizing the same strategy as I did before. Try and micro warp jump the Apocalypse to safety. Still, what is it? Not really. What am I trying to say? At least before it gets within lightning strike range, or before its shields go down, I suppose. In all honesty, it's really the assault boats that maybe I should be worried about, because I don't believe there's any real risk of the shields going down just from saps alone. So that's another little nuance I'm going to be paying attention to, I think, as this match goes on. Since, again, the micro warp jump is easily nullified by a single boarding assault action, and we've seen that it can deal with assault boats incredibly well just by itself, never mind if a dictator's there to support it properly. But this time, I am weary or aware that, well, I've lost my train of thought already, damn it, because I was trying to keep in mind the torpedoes. Either way, I'm aware of the fact that it was perhaps too far away and the Apocalypse was not able to give the support that I would have liked. So, better placement of the frigate should help a lot in that matter, so I am mindful of that and gonna try and improve on that without getting the Apocalypse kind of isolated and vulnerable to just be run down, ideally. But I'm keeping an eye out for everything. There is still a bit of a blind spot over on the left, but that's what my leftward frigate's going to be for. It's even boosting forward now, even as I say that. But we get detection. Very brief detection, but the second torpedo gauge shot down and all the other ones gives it away. Maybe not the entirety of their fleet, but I could say without a doubt that it's certainly not frigates.
Your orders?
And hell, I probably should have had that one frigate on the right try and reveal them. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could play the objective type of route and play it slow. But who am I kidding? We've seen with Arcanists there that you just want to run down your opponent if the situation warrants it. There's almost never any really objective-based game. But I'm boosting with the cruisers because of the boomerang effect I mentioned before. I'm going to recall these fighters, and due to how much further to the left my cruisers are, it should at least reveal a portion of their fleet. That's the hope anyway. Ideally, if the fighter squadron can survive, that would be the best result though. Since we did see there were assault boats and fighters before, and we're seeing a single brute here, which is not all that exciting. But it gives me a little reassurance that I am safe. And we do see at least one ship that has the torpedo bay on it. Not much else, alas, just yet.
Engaging engines.
And if I remember correctly, there's two other frigates on the far right there that are going wide on the right portion of the map. So it's just this one frigate we have to deal with, and then the cruisers, which are all with the other cruiser that's in the middle right now. I just haven't I haven't conveniently been able to reveal them. It's the only downside. And sadly, I think I burnt the combustion gauge on my frigate on the right that's being hunted down. So I was going to have a difficult time trying to live a little bit. At least it's going to be taking quite a bit of flack from the DACA.
Your orders?
Otherwise, I'm waiting for this frigate to go down. I'm waiting for the objective to get shot, or at least captured, but did I hit with the torpedoes? Okay, I actually hit with one of the torpedoes, which is pretty good, considering it already scanner pulsed. So that thing should be dead no matter what. And with the fighters being launched, the frigate coming up, I will detect the rest of this fleet pretty soon. And even if I can't detect them, at least I can shoot at this one here and start getting something to work in my advantage. But we've revealed the rest of the fleet. And that makes this a little more trepidatious just because of how much closer they are. Although these assault boats should not be much of a threat. At least on their own. I am mindful of the mega cannons, and I believe a tractor cannon is going to hit me in a moment. It trapped me inside at least one of these ships inside the stasis bomb. Thankfully, the fighters managed to catch the assault boats at the perfect time, because that was actually my dictator they pulled, which worked out conveniently well for me. Now, I am going to do my micro warp jumps pretty soon, I believe. And this is very close for comfort, I feel like. But at least this is a better situation for me because the Apocalypse at least can jump behind them. So that way it's almost impossible without them turning around completely to go after it. And I think it even got its Kulex's assassin off at the same time too. And at least in this case, we could see a little bit of better potential. It may not be the most exciting because I timed it poorly because of the boosters. But now we have an isolated flagship, and I'm ready to burn it to death with these melted torpedoes. Sadly, not the most exciting torpedo salvo. But you'd be surprised what 3 melted torpedoes can do to a single orc ship. Especially when it's complemented with 2 more from critical hits and a little bit of ramming damage. It's still a bit of a mess, I'm not gonna lie. I'm running low on combustion gauge yet again, since I don't think I used summary execution on all of them. Well, I just did now. Which sadly, even with that using summary execution, I did lose a lot of morale on one of these ships. It's a bit of a mess. Kulex's assassin does force the mutiny on the one rock, but it's immune to critical hits. It's not like I can destroy the deck and get it out of the equation. But what that does do is every time it gets a mutiny, it suffers fire results. So if I can force it to break again, it's just gonna lose its own morale pretty easily as a result of that, as we're going to see as this progresses. It's still a bit of a mess, though.
Maximum
Yeah, there we are. A second morale, or mutiny. Or actually, not a second mutiny. It was actually boarding damage that crippled it to that point. So now the Rock is completely out of the fight. Sadly, that one cruiser is about to die an abysmal death. My torpedo did not connect the best I like, but I actually survived the battle. That's the one plus there. The downside, I have some objectives to grab still. Since those frigates I mentioned earlier have basically been just stealing points behind me all this time. And I was thinking of firing Novacans on this thing. I don't think it helps me all that much, sadly, the truth be told.
setting course.
Since it's still got like 1600 health left, I believe, if it is a Mega Rock.
Enemy sighted.
I'm pretty certain it's just regular Rock maybe, because it was keeping pace with the battle cruisers so far.
We serve.
Now what I'm going to do is abuse the power of the battleship, while hopefully destroying a couple of these frigates as a bonus. Since I do have the micro warp jump still, and I'm going to take advantage of it the best I can here.
Aye, Admiral.
Although I think I do a terrible job with this falchion, in that it is going to be burning out its combustion gauge, which is kind of essential for this.
All ahead, full.
It's going to be left to deal with these three brutes on its own, and when I burn out its combustion gauge, that doesn't bode well.
Heading acknowledged.
So the Apocalypse is going to give it one final encouraging support fire before jumping on out. Although sadly it had to hit the one with shields, I'm just realizing.
We serve.
A fire assault on the one crippled brute would have been amazing right now. But the idea again is to grab the points,
Course engaged.
since we are pretty close to an even score. It's just 3 points to my 1 that's causing me problems at the moment.
We wait your command.
But the battleship, it grabs the objectives incredibly quickly, so it's just a matter how I best position and plan for its mobility. Since one frigate's down there, my combustion gauge is about to come back up,
The enemy has seized a
and I have
strategic
torpedoes to
area.
maybe help deal with the other brood with its low morale, if I'm so lucky.
Underway.
It's a bit of a silly skirmish when you think about it, since I should have an easy time killing these, so long as I aim these torpedoes properly.
Strategic area.
That forced a mutiny, and thankfully that fire assault's going to force another mutiny as a result. And if I'm so lucky, that thing is just dead from having to kill the crew off, because keep in mind, it's going to suffer 2 more critical hits afterwards. No, never mind.
Full.
They just immediately repaired it. I got excited for a moment.
The enemy has accumulated 75% of strategic
Either way,
points.
we got 2 points. I'm boosting forward to grab a third, and I'm going to make use of summary execution to recharge my combustion gauge to
Setting course.
at least quickly get these objectives.
Burn retros.
Hopefully my Apocalypse can at least provide a little bit of fire, but I don't think the angle's the best for this.
Coordinates
And I miss
acknowledged.
completely on those torpedoes, which is what I needed.
We serve.
On the plus side though, I did trade off by killing their one brute. So if I'm understanding this correctly, there are only those 2 brutes left,
Coordinates acknowledged.
and then I have access to all these objectives. And they go notably faster than me, but I capture objectives faster than them.
Changing course.
But it's still going to be down to the wire, looks like. They have 2,200 points. I have only 1,700, but
Engaging engines.
once I grab the 3rd point on the bottom, I'll at the very least be able
Burn retros.
to only bring them down to 1 objective point a
You have
second,
seized a strategic area.
which is probably going to make all the difference. But I'm just realizing now I'm completely wrong in what I said about there being another
Coordinates
frigate.
acknowledged.
Oh no, never. Okay, apparently there were a lot more frigates. I thought there was maybe 6 of them. Apparently there was like 3 more unaccounted for that I didn't realize. So what I'm going to do here is grab the objective, micro warp jump to turn myself around, and then just secure these other points.
Understood.
I'm going to have to commit myself to hopefully
Heading
having 4
acknowledged.
objectives for the time being enough to get victory.
Course force engaged.
And sadly I do burn my combustion gauge, but I don't need it for the time being. I just need to secure this point, jump around, and be very mindful of timing this right. That's the big factor. It could screw me up quite well. I was trying to time it there to do this as efficiently as possible, and thankfully it works out for me. Just by 1 or 2 seconds off.
You have seized a strategic area.
Because if I had done that any earlier, that might make this a guaranteed loss for me, since I would be missing out on the points there. And all I'm really trying to do here is to force them out of the objective, because at least that way they can't get the points. Although if my opponent's going to help me by allow me to kill his frigates, that helps quite a bit too.
Setting course. Lock on target.
Sadly, I'm not going to get the ram damage I would like, but they're off the point.
Targeting
And I'm going to try and make my priority killing the one up top.
Coordinates acknowledged.
And I believe each of these brutes are 30 points, 33 points, so keep that in mind too.
Engaging engines.
I just got 66 additional score out of that, with a possible another 33 if this one brute dies behind me.
Burn retros.
So it's coming down to the wire, folks. Another Nova cannon to just kind of force off the objective,
The enemy is seizing
although sadly they did
strategic
neutralize the
areas.
point. And this brute's gonna kill itself for me.
Acknowledged.
It was mighty generous of him, I gotta say, but I have no idea if that Nova cannon connected or not.
Coordinates acknowledged.
Since again, remember, they have the Blood Axe upgrade, so they could easily get out of that gas cloud and be completely invisible to me. Just due to the shroud effect that the Orc commandos give.
You are close to victory by strategic points. The
And I'm not going to be
enemy
able
is
to see it
seizing
until
one
I
of
get
your
on the objective as well,
strategic
but
areas.
we're now 50 points away from each other. And a mutiny just triggered on this brute, so keep that in mind. That played out nicely for me. The Nova can't connect it, and apparently it caused a fire result that forced a mutiny on that thing. And with that said, with that final brute down, and with me currently 2 objectives up, 3 after this next few moments, I can comfortably say this is a victory for me. It was still a bit of a mess.
Coordinates acknowledged.
My Apocalypse did contribute in the fight and ultimately is the reason I won this
Course
battle.
engaged.
Although, an Armageddon probably would have been
You
so
have
much more
seized a
better
strategic
just
area.
because of this better speed and higher mobility. Never mind, a high energy turn is really helpful too for any brutes that are trying to
Await your command.
hide behind me.
Understood.
So, I just narrowly avoid a dang
Engaging engines.
3-game losing streak here in this episode. But at the very least, I hope these matches have been enjoyable. That's the only thing I can really hope for, I suppose. Since, again, this was down to the wire, and it's going to be decided in a moment. It just was a weird game of cat and mouse trying to hunt down
Maximum burn.
and grab these dang objectives from all these brutes. So hopefully, just hopefully, I can learn from this. Because I still feel like a couple of fine-tuning and a little bit of refinement, never mind a couple of tweaks to skills, might be really good for that Chaos fleet. I feel like anyway.